where the Democratic Republic of Congo has accused Rwanda of delaying the implementation of a peace deal that the sides signed in Washington in June. President Felix Tshisekedi was speaking on the sidelines of the UN General Assembly in New York. He said Rwandan troops continue to be present on Congolese soil and are supporting the rebel M23 group. While the DRC is ready to make peace, Tshisekedi said that Rwanda was, quote, trying to gain time for the crisis to worsen. Fighting between the Congolese army and an M23-led rebel alliance has been ongoing in the eastern DRC for months now, a situation which has worsened the humanitarian situation in the region. In the Washington deal, part of Kinshasa's demands was for Rwandan troops to leave Congolese territory without conditions. The UN and other countries have long accused Rwanda of funding and supplying the M23 with weapons, allegations Kigali has always denied. The eastern DRC, a region bordering Rwanda and with abundant mineral resources, has been plagued by extreme violence for decades, with armed groups fighting government troops for mineral control. Well, CGTN's Chris Ochamringa is in Kinshasa and Ethan Tashobia is in Kigali, joining us live with more. Chris, let me start off with you because the DRC is accusing Rwanda of delaying implementation of a peace deal that the two sides signed in Washington in June. What more do we know on this?
Yes, that accusation made by President Felix Tshisekedi in New York is the first that he's making in quite a long time. But it is a view that's been widely held in Kinshasa among security officials and the government. They have been accusing Rwanda of undermining the peace efforts that were led by the United States. The Washington Accord that was signed in June 27th. They're saying Rwanda was supposed to withdraw its troops from eastern DRC, and DRC was supposed to disarm the FDLR. This is a Hutu militia that's been in the DRC trying to fight against the Rwandan government. So they're saying the Rwandan government has continued supporting the M23 rebels in that area. Recently we heard security officials in the DRC saying that they arrested a Rwandan soldier fighting alongside the rebels in North Kivu province. He was sent to Kinshasa for interrogation, and a couple of weeks ago the Minister of Communication said that the Rwandan government is frustrating all the peace efforts, the one in the United States and the one that's currently going on in Doha in Qatar. And he said that the Rwandan government has influenced the M23 rebels to continue occupying the areas that they are holding and to create a separate country. So the tensions are still very high. The two sides are still hostile towards each other, and they do not trust each other. So many observers are saying that, you know, the United States was very quick to have a peace deal, but these two parties, the principal actors in this conflict, are not really on talking terms, and that will be very difficult for them to come and make some concessions so that peace can be restored in eastern DRC. Beatrice?
And Ethan, to you, how has Kigali responded to Kinshasa's accusations?
Beatrice, so far Rwanda has not issued any formal responses to the accusations from Kinshasa, but we are looking at the exchanges that we've seen online between officials from Kigali and those in Kinshasa. They've been quite hostile to each other in that sense. Looking at the responses, especially the conversations, the rebuttals online between Rwanda's Foreign Affairs Minister and the DRC's Minister of Information. Rwanda has continuously accused officials from the DRC of inciting some sort of violence in eastern DRC, but also sort of fueling the peace that has been talked about in the recent agreements and all that. So they're saying that what is talked about behind closed doors does not really reflect when it comes to the communication that is being relayed on social media and even in the Congolese media on that case, and that sort of leaves Rwanda with a bit of questions if indeed what is being discussed behind closed doors and what is being signed in principle is going to be implemented in long term. So at this point, we don't know what is going to happen with regards to the implementation itself and the accusations, Rwanda has remained silent. As a matter of fact, we are all expecting that there's going to be some sort of concrete at the UN General Assembly, but the president of Rwanda is currently engaged in international travels. He was in Azerbaijan right now. I think this mid-morning he has arrived in Cairo, Egypt, where he's meeting the president of Egypt. So we are yet to see if Rwanda is going to come out to address those accusations, or they're only going to continue engaging that, hoping that that there's going to be some sort of putting down their tools in terms of how they are approaching the communications and the peace talks, and also the sort of inciting some sort of anger on both ends to reduce, and then they can come to terms and discuss what needs to be discussed, and also put into action on regards the agreement.
So, Chris, what is the latest, coming back to the ground now, what is the latest on the fighting in Eastern DRC? And do talk to us about efforts to implement the Declaration of Principles deal and the exchange of prisoners.
Well, that issue of the exchange of prisoners has made some progress. There's progress. About 2 weeks ago, both sides, the DRC and the M23, signed a prisoner exchange agreement, and they were commended by the United States advisor to Africa, saying that this is a very important step in trying to end that conflict. But we have not heard any public statement by the government in Kinshasa about the prisoners of M23 who have been released. You know, this is a very contentious matter. There are very many Congolese soldiers who have died in this conflict, and there are politicians who are not happy about, you know, this issue of releasing prisoners. They're saying these are terrorists who have been trying to kill Congolese. Some of them have been sentenced to death, and there are people in the DRC who want them to be hanged. You know, so it's something that is happening behind the scenes. I think the government is trying to avoid escalating the situation internally in the DRC. So we haven't heard any public statements. But regarding the conflict in Eastern DRC, it has escalated since the weekend on Saturday. There has been a lot of fighting in Walikale and Masisi territories. We're told the DRC army launched airstrikes on some of the positions of the M23. Many people were killed. We don't know the exact number, but we have been told also by locals in that area that the M23 rebels ordered all the civilians to leave the area so that they prepare for a military battle with the Congolese army. So there's still a lot of tension, and we have been informed also that the United States, Qatar, and the African Union, you know, are doing a lot of diplomacy behind the scenes to try and ensure that the two sides stop fighting and continue with the peace initiative in Qatar, so that fighting may end and people can start living their lives normally. Beatrice?
And Ethan, you know, the DRC's key issue is that Rwandan troops continue to be on Congolese soil and support the M23. What are you hearing from Kigali on how they are going to address the withdrawal of troops from DRC territory?
From Kigali, there have been no guarantees that Rwanda's security concerns are going to be addressed from Kinshasa's part, and that also includes the neutralization of security threats. That includes the Democratic Forces for the Liberation of Rwanda, FDLR, and, you know, making sure that the borders between Rwanda and the DRC are safe. So that's the issue that has always come across when it comes to the conflict, and also coming to the peace deal. They don't see any will from the Kinshasa in regards to addressing the security threats and having the guarantees that once that is addressed, then they can come to terms with, you know, implementing other parts. That's also, you know, exchanging people that have been retained or detained over time, and also making sure that, you know, this peace, the whole peace deal and the economic deals come into play and are all implemented. So the part of security guarantees remains a key issue, and how Rwanda is going to address, or rather is going to look into the implementation of the whole agreement. And so that's why they've been sort of slow progress regards the implementations. And once that is guaranteed from Kinshasa, we see Rwanda coming to the table and also going forward into looking into other issues that Rwanda has been accused of. But for now, the biggest issue is, will Kinshasa address the security threats that Rwanda has put across over the years, for the 30 years? That remains to be an issue that we don't know how that is going to end at this moment.
Right. And Chris, finally, we are also getting reports that President Tshisekedi says the DRC will not auction mineral resources to the United States. Can you give us more details on that?
So President Tshisekedi made that statement to allay the fears of Congolese people. After that deal was brokered by the United States on June 27th in Washington, D.C., there was a lot of anger and criticism leveled at the president here in Kinshasa and other parts of the DRC. There were people from the academia, religious leaders, civil society organizations, and opposition leaders who wrote a letter to the president saying that he signed that deal. And there was that element about the economic cooperation that Rwanda and the DRC are supposed to have in the areas of mining, tourism, and infrastructure. So people are not happy about that. They were saying the DRC is a sovereign country. It should decide who to trade with. The United States has no right to impose that on them in this peace for the sake of peace. So people were very unhappy about that deal, and they were saying the president signed it to save his skin at the expense of, the legacy that these minerals are supposed to have to the Congolese people. So President Tshisekedi answered the people saying that he will not auction the minerals. He said that back then in Kinshasa, and he has said it again in the US to assure the people of Congo that this deal will not just, hand over like a blank check to the US and other foreign countries to get their minerals. Their first priority will be to improve the lives of the Congolese people using these proceeds from the minerals. Beatrice?
All right, Chris Ochamringa joining us there from Kinshasa, and Ethan Tashobia in Kigali, Rwanda. To you both, thank you.